Writing by ms_kitten_. 5 days ago journal entry 2-minute read Floppy Joe and the filming fiasco, a satirical tale of consent gone awry once upon a time in a world not so different from yours. There lived a dodgy filmmaker named Floppy Joe. Floppy Joe had one mission, to capture the beauty of the human form in all its glorious nudity. His cinematic vision was grand, yet woefully devoid of a fundamental element, explicit consent. Floppy Joe believed in the artistic expression clause. A far-fetched doctrine he had conjured while sipping his third espresso at a local cafe. According to this clause, any passers-by should naturally acquiesce to being filmed. Especially when they happen to be, unclothed. After all, who wouldn't want to be part of Floppy Joe's groundbreaking series entitled Barely Artists? The essential checklist for explicit consent, as everyone else understood it, written agreement, a formal document where individuals acknowledge they are voluntarily participating and clearly understand their rights. Full disclosure, filmmakers should clarify the purpose of the video, the intended audience and potential distribution channels. Surprise nudity should not be part of the package. Date of consent, because memories fade and vague agreements from last summer won't hold up in a court case. Revocability clause, the ability for participants to revoke their consent at any moment. Especially useful for those who, upon seeing themselves on the big screen, have sudden existential crises. Location awareness. Not everyone wishes to be filmed while frolicking in their backyard. A good filmmaker should scout locations where people are somewhat comfortable. But Floppy Joe, ever the rebel, tossed the checklist into a blender, creating a smoothie of negligence. He didn't see the need for all that paperwork or the niceties of polite discussion. Instead, armed with a camera, he roamed the beach, shoving his lens into the faces of innocent sunbathers, declaring loudly, "Art is subjective." The consequences of Floppy Joe's reckless disregard for consent soon came to light. One fateful afternoon, as he filmed what he dubbed the nude ballet, he didn't realize that his camera had been zooming in on a sunbather who had long since declared herself not a participant in any avant-garde drama. The results were catastrophic. The sunbather, a local lawyer with a passion for privacy and a formidable resume, decided enough was enough. She sued Floppy Joe for everything he had, his camera, his coffee, and especially his artistic expression clause. In court, Floppy Joe donned an oversized beret and attempted to plead his case. "Your Honor," he declared, "the essence of human freedom is the right to bear all. This is a celebration of individuality." The judge raised an eyebrow. "And what about their right to privacy? Did you not read the fine print on consent?" Joe blinked. "Fine print? I thought it was all very black and white." The jury, comprised mainly of disgruntled nudists, swiftly lost faith in his artistic defense. They awarded the sunbather a cool $1 million in damages and mandated that Floppy Joe attend a workshop titled Filmmaking 101, Consent Matters. As he left the courtroom, stripped of his film rights and credibility, he pondered his life choices. Floppy Joe realized that perhaps he should have read the entire checklist, and possibly invested in a decent PR team. His cinematic career dwindled to shadows of its former self, relegated to the dark corners of community college art classes, where he forever showcased the unwatchable montage of his misadventures. And so, the notorious Floppy Joe became a cautionary tale, reminding aspiring filmmakers, explicit consent isn't just a good idea, it's the law. Moral of the story: while art may be subjective, consent is non-negotiable. Oaks aside, this is critical to understand before embarking on any naked filming. Here is cheat sheet for people like Joe. Explicit consent for participation in a pornographic film is a crucial legal and ethical obligation that must be adhered to by all parties involved. Here are the main components that should be included to ensure that consent is considered valid: informed consent, clear understanding. All participants must have a clear understanding of what they are consenting to, including the nature of the film, the types of sexual acts involved, and the context in which they will be filmed. Information disclosure. All relevant information should be disclosed, such as who will be present during filming, where the film will be distributed, and how it will be used. Voluntary agreement. Free from coercion. Consent must be given freely and voluntarily without any form of coercion, pressure, or manipulation. Capacity to consent. All participants must be of legal age and have the mental capacity to understand the implications of their consent. This means they should not be under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of consent. Explicit nature of consent. Written agreements. It is advisable to have formal written consent agreements that detail the terms of participation. These documents should be signed by all parties involved. Specific and detailed. The consent should outline specific acts that participants are consenting to. Avoiding vague language. Consent for one act does not imply consent for another. Right to withdraw consent. Ongoing consent. Participants should be informed that they can withdraw consent at any time before or during filming without facing any repercussions. Clear procedures. Guidelines should be established for how to communicate the withdrawal of consent. Confidentiality and privacy considerations. Use of personal information. Consent should address how personal information will be handled, including the use of participants' names, likenesses, and other identifying information in the film and promotional materials. Privacy agreements. Participants should understand where and how the content may be distributed and have the opportunity to agree or disagree to specific forms of use. Age verification. Proof of age. All participants must provide valid identification to prove they are of legal age, typically 18 or older, depending on jurisdiction, to engage in adult film work. Legal considerations. Regulatory compliance. Ensure compliance with all relevant laws and regulations governing adult film production in the area, including talent licensing and any health regulations. Respect for boundaries. Understanding limits. Engage in conversations about personal boundaries and ensure that all parties are respectful of each other's limits and comfort levels throughout the process. By ensuring these components are present in the consent process, the production can enhance the ethical standards of adult film work and protect the rights and well-being of all individuals involved. The use of indemnity boxes or consent agreements on adult websites like FetLife serves a specific legal purpose. When users upload content to these platforms, they are typically required to agree to certain terms and conditions, which often include a clause affirming that consent. The user certifies that all individuals depicted in the uploaded content have provided consent for that content to be shared publicly on the platform. Age verification. The user confirms that all individuals in the images or videos are at least 18 years of age at the time the content was created. Documentation. The user asserts that they have access to documentation, such as identification, to verify the age and consent of all individuals involved. These clauses are designed to protect the platform legally by requiring users to acknowledge these conditions. The website can argue that it has taken reasonable steps to avoid hosting illegal or non-consensual content. However, the effectiveness of these protections largely depends on user compliance and honesty. Legally, users who upload content without adhering to these conditions could face repercussions, including legal action for copyright infringement, violation of laws regarding non-consensual pornography, or distribution of minors' explicit content. Users must not only tick the box acknowledging these terms but should also ensure that they genuinely comply with them. In practice, there may be a discrepancy between the number of users who agree to the terms and those who actually meet all the legal requirements. It's crucial for content creators to take these agreements seriously, as failing to comply not only affects their own legal standing but also poses risks to the platform and its users.